Okay, so I went ahead and finished out working with all of this just so I can move on to my next step. Now, you'll note that I did a lot of random placements, a lot of random designs, but one of the biggest things I tried pretty well at doing was not to have any real just giant squares. Because having something like a perfect square is going to be your worst enemy in this entire process. You'll also note that I went back into my edit preferences, guides and slices, and I set my subdivisions just to be 1 on the grid, just so I can see the breakup of these lines just a little bit easier. Now, there's still plenty more I can do, and there's still plenty more little spaces, little gaps and things that I can put in just to help fill out these spots. Other things I can do is kind of go in and change some of these things just so they're not quite so big and bulky, or if I really wanted to kind of add in some kind of extra pattern into it just to kind of help break up some of these shapes. Well, this is where things get just a little bit more complicated. Well, we still have plenty to do for things like what we did with the grass, where we added the different shadows, the different colors, textures, all of that. Well, the basic concept for the shadowing and pixel art is going to break down like this. First off, we have our base color, and in this case, my base color for the dirt was this lighter brown. The darker color here is 1 shade darker. Well, you usually want to have at least 2 shades darker and 1 shade lighter than your base color. So now that I have this dark one, I'm gonna come over here, choose a bit of a darker color, and kind of like what I did before for the darker grass, kind of come in and just fill in some of these spots underneath, just to add some extra depth and detail to the rocks. And as you can see already with the couple I did, it adds just so much more to it by having it there. Okay, now let's keep going. So I'm going to just take this dark color, and not necessarily everywhere, and I'm definitely going to have a few issues in here with where these things are lining up on these edges, but the main thing in this case is just to fill in the bottom side of a lot of these different rock formations. Because what I'm really doing is just filling in the shadows from where everything theoretically would be. Now, it is important to note that you can go overboard doing this, and we don't want to as best we can, but we also want to get plenty of detail in here, so there's a good bit of trial and error to try to get exactly what needs to be here. So there's not going to be a one perfect answer, especially if you did things in a more randomized creation method, which is how I did mine here. So I'm just kind of taking what I had before and darkening some things up around it. So I'm going to continue this, pause the video, and when I get back we'll see how it looks when I finished out the... Okay, so I added in all the shadows I really wanted to, and that said, you will note that I made a couple changes, added in just a few more things here and there, and never feel bad if you just want to add in just a little bit more or overwrite a little bit of what you had somewhere else, just because there's really not a bad way to go about doing it as long as everything, for the most part, is covered just about right. Now, internal chunks like this, I'm going to go ahead and fill those in too. but for the most part, this is about how far I need to take it at this moment. Well, as I said, there's 2 darker, 1 lighter. Well, if this is the base, 1 darker, 2 darker, so now I need to go a little bit lighter. So Alt to choose that brown, and I will increase my color just so I can kind of come in here and, just like before, add in just some of these highlights to these different sections. And I can do this to just kind of fill in some of these spots, as well as override anything. Not this one. I actually don't care for this color, so I'm going to pick something. I don't care for that either. Too gray. Actually, I'm good with that one. So a little bit more of a grayish brown. But I'll come back and fix some of these spots. Yeah, good enough. So I'll come in, kind of hit some of these just different spots, fill in, add just a little bit to my scene through here. And watch over here, just kind of as I do, to make sure things are filling in how I think they look, and make sure I'm happy with the overall design. But I'm free to also kind of come in here, just kind of add some of these others, fill in some of these gaps, things like that. So I'm actually not too happy with this color overall. So I'm going to just throw on some of it, but move to another color just after I balance some of these spots out just a bit more. Okay. So added a few more here and there. I look at my picture up here, not bad, but I still feel that I'm missing some color. So I'm going to kind of come to a pale orange up here. Do I like how you look? Too bright. Let's darken you up. Still too much. Try you. That's not bad. And I'm just kind of come in and fill in some of these spots. Because I can do plenty things, like come in to get some true silver, just kind of speckle it around. Just add some big color differences in the middle of stuff. I can come in and let's go for some kind of a gold color also. So I'm pretty happy with my balance that I have on here, and I can zoom out, give it a good look over. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I might take away a couple of these and just limit it to say 3 or 2 to 4 in each square. Yeah. So I have this. Now, obviously, if we had this going at 32, 64, or even 128-bit, or just kind of whatever increment we want, we'd be able to add so much more detail with every single step. But now that I have this, I'm ready to kind of go in here and start doing just a bit more with the actual game design set up. That'll work. So, from here, I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. Okay. So I got my background, got all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and go Edit, Canvas Size. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and save this. And just on my desktop, I'm going to name it Grass Pixel Tileset. Just so I have a base for it. Then I'll go File, Save As again. And I'm going to name this one Grass 2D Stage. Alright, so next up, Image, Canvas Size, and I want to keep this pretty much the same in terms of a multiple. So I'm going to go ahead, do a quick calculator. So let's say, you know what, we'll make it simple. I'll give this a width of that and a height of I'll go for that, which now gives me this giant space to work with. So that's probably a bit much. I'm going to go ahead and edit that one more time. Image, canvas size. Okay, so I'll work with it like this. I'll go to my background, drop that. Paint can, grab that color, and lock the background. Now, I have all of this, so I'm just going to take it real quick, and I'm going to move it about here. Okay. So now that I have it, I'm going to go ahead and actually just delete my layer 2, because all I really need is to be able to grab these sections at one time. So I'm going to pause it just for a bit, come up with my concept for how I want this stage to kind of look, and when we get back, I will go through the process of putting this tile set together. Okay, so I got my idea for what I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. Well, first off, I'm going to go with my selection tool up here, and I'm going to hit this chunk right there. Go back to move, and when I hold Alt, I'll click and drag, and I'm going to start my thing about here. Okay. Cool. So I'll go deselect, or I can just do Control D, and I have this. Awesome. Well, I'm going to be doing a lot of move and rectangular select the marquee, so I can hit these buttons or hit the V or M, so I'll go through it just kind of a slow back and forth way. So I got that. So I'm going to grab these two, back to move, hold Alt just so I can move and copy at the same time. Missed it by just a bit, so I'll move it back up. Okay, once again hold Alt, and I'll move it down. and Shift D, or not Shift D, Control D to deselect, but I can kind of see how it looks. So I zoom out just a bit. Pretty good. So now that I have this, I can keep doing this same thing just to kind of help build up my stage. Select that stuff, move, hold Alt, move it into place. Well, since I have this, I can reselect all of this, grab these two together, move, Alt, and for where I have things on this stage that I want unchanging, I can just grab these bigger chunks like this and keep copying for however long I need things, like this, on the stage. Control D, reselect all of these, and I'll do just one more like this. So move it over, down, and lock them together. Cool. Well, I have this. Next up, I want to go through and have a ledge here that whatever character it is going to jump for. Now, assuming that the character is going to be roughly 2 squares tall, this ledge, depending on how I want the game, is going to be 1 or 2 up. So, I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab these 2. Move them up. And now, how far up do I want it? Now, I can put it kind of however far up I want, but I'll just do these 2. Now, I have one thing right here that I would realistically want to account for. So what we built back here was the exterior version of this tile set. Well, realistically speaking, we would have another one like this, but it would be the reverse, where it would be grass on the inside and dirt on the outside. Mostly to have this kind of transition right here. Because if I just take one of these dirt sets, I'm going to have this little part right here where it just doesn't make sense. But I'm going to ignore that for the moment and just kind of keep going with what I have here. So I'll grab some of this dirt, and get it to about there. Alright, so far so good. One more. I'll grab these, back to move, copy them down, and I made one accident there. I didn't let go of Alt before I finished that. Grab this chunk, back to move, Alt, and into place. And you can see how it's rough right here. We can truly see how this one chunk right there is causing us a problem. But let's go ahead and finish up this ledge, where now I'm going to have it drop off. So I'm going to need this piece and this piece. So I'll come in, zoom in, grab these 2, grab it, move it, zoom out, move faster this way, bring it over, and connect it about there. Okay. Well, since this is just going to be a ledge to this depth below, I'm going to need this one piece. Move, Alt, bring it down, grab two of them, and I really don't care if I have one extra down there below, but there is technically one more there. Alright, pretty good there. Well, if I have a ledge, that's going to need to jump to something, so let's go for a bit of a platformer. Well, my scene's big, so I'll zoom out a bit, and I'm going to grab this top set here, move, Alt, drop it up there, and I want a bit of a bigger jump, so I'm going to move it to about here. Nope, over just a bit, down. There we go. So I got that. Okay. Well, if I'm just going to have that platform, I could just be there and done with it, but I'm actually going to grab this piece down here, move this up there, and get this up here and locked in together. Zoom in. There we go. So this is the overall concept for how these stage assemblies go. I have a lot more stage that I could work with. I got plenty of things like clouds I could do up above. But for this first initial look at things, not actually bad. And this is what goes into making these kind of 2D games. From here, we would have to assign collision to individual squares, add physics to what the character can do, how it can move, what it can latch on to, things like that. But for the most part, this is all that there really is to creating your own 2D stage for some kind of platformer. I will go ahead and turn off my grid just so we can kind of see this stage. And as I zoom out, depending on how much of the stage we actually want to see at once, because if it's something a bit more like this, yeah, there we go. So if it's a bit more like this, well, not too bad. But I can definitely see some areas where I have some problems. Almost every one of these columns, I can see this issue with this edge right through here not lining up correctly. So those things I said you had to be careful with how things line up, this is exactly why. I wasn't careful with it, so I'm going to have this tiled look and this edge that just isn't going to flow just right. However, the top to bottom looks pretty good overall. So it would have to be coming back here and fixing these original sets. But that is all the basic concepts to building a simple 2D platformer pixel art stage. And this is where it will all begin. So, that's all I have for this one, and I'll see you in the next one.